preachers, they, to me, they perpetuate this class business. And, you know, as I'm 60, I'll be 67 next year. And you know, my feeling is, I wanted y'all to see the same thing, is they try to push you out because you don't want to get along with them and go along with them. Because, you know, I'm very active in my community in Baby Hunters Point. But then the point, I got to the point, I mean, these people is ridiculous. I mean, they scared to speak out the truth. And you know, I'm glad the young people, they beginning to speak out, because a lot of stuff needed to be said, should have been said all along. You know, like the king was out there, but we never got to this issue dealing with the prison system and how this pervasive society is suppressing us and keeping the men from being men and keeping the brothers in line to what's, you know, like we pass on and say, hey man, this is the truth that we talk about, and this ain't right. And we used to do that. We used to cut that up. And we don't cut it up like that no more. You know, like we said, okay, I'm gonna be moving on, but this young brother, you need to know about this, and that.
That's right.
And then I'm gonna move on, and then you carry the baton to the next level. We're not doing that.
So some real family. Community and family. These two brothers and the young brother? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Come on, brother, tell us your name.
My name is Dave Wilson. I'm just listening.
I hear you, but I thought you also had your hand and you wanted to say something.
I was trying to figure out what he meant when he said they perpetuate the classes.
Am I correct in feeling that it's a little too intellectual, and that it should be more down to what we experience in ourselves as individuals, and more people getting into it than just the erudite?
Okay.
I think we all right.
Okay, all right, man.
Continue.
I agree with what he's saying, because I feel like white supremacy shows up every day in our everyday life, and I feel like we all, that's a part of kind of dismantling, is actually identifying how does it show up every day in our life.
That's right.
Okay, I agree with what Ari said, and going back to what she said about Black Lives Matter, well, there's no difference in white supremacy back in the 1600s as opposed to white supremacy today, except for it's gotten even worse. Today we have less than 1/10% of all the people in the United States that own 60% of all the resources in the United States. I'll say that again. We have 1/10% of all the people in the United States that own 60% of all the resources in the United States. They are the ones who say, you can't do this, you can't do that. We have school systems that are based on the lies that came out of Rockefeller Center, and the Rockefeller family, and the Vanderbilts and the Astors, that say you can't do, and they also perpetuate their class system. It's not, they use racism to cover the imperialism. To give you an example, since 2000, the Westinghouse Science Talent Search was taken over by Intel. Well, they expanded it so that the top 40 students in this national science fair got prizes. You have yet to see a newspaper article anywhere that tells you that 1/3 of all the winners since 2000 are homeless or live below the poverty level. And yet, these are kids that if you're in that top 40, you get $11,000 laptop. Plus, if your science project is something that is commercial value, they will give you engineers, lawyers, architects, and financiers to help bring your product out to market. But yet, when you get into a situation where you have a school board saying, we don't want our kids to go to the science fair down here in San Jose because it's going to give them a psychological trauma because they can't compete. See, that is racism. Because if you go back to wrestling from the 70s, there was a guy from out of North Carolina called Ric Flair, and he told this Southeast Asian called Ricky Steamboat, he said, Ricky, you will never ever be the world wrestling champion because you can't beat the man if you don't wrestle the man. In other words, I don't want to hear about racism. Yeah, it's there, but you got to get in the arena and fight.
That's right. Good.
And
Exactly.
once you do that,
Yeah.
you change the whole paradigm. You know, Black Lives Matter. If you look at the history of this country, nothing happens until the black community gets up and raises hell. Between January 1st and September 30th of last year, there were 450 people in this country murdered by police.
Okay.
Yet you won't hear anything in the local newspapers. You have to read other newspapers. I read Russia Today. I'm learning, I can pick out certain words in Spanish. I speak Russian. I speak and read French. I'm learning Mandarin because you need to be well-versed in other cultures to see what's going on in your own country.
Thank you. This is good, brother,
Yeah.
because you know you could go on and just do a whole lecture. I'm loving it.
Yeah,
but we
because-
want to give other folks an opportunity.
I want to say one last thing.
Okay, one last thing.
And this is real quick. The reason why it's important is because on January 1st of 2009, at 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone was ringing off the hook because of friends that I have in Beijing asking me if I was okay. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, we know you love to ride mass transit, and we heard that the mass transit police had just killed a black man.
Oscar.
And I'm going, what are you talking about? Didn't hear anything around here for 3 days in the local papers.
Gotcha. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent.
I
Brother.
kind of wanted to piggyback off of what he said.
Okay, go on.
But-
Thank you so much.
But
brother.
I kind of disagree with you when you
Around?
say we don't have power. See, that's the problem is we've been programmed to think that we don't have power. But if you look at our history, as what he just said, we do have power. We just don't utilize that power, and we don't unite that power. So
Okay.
I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, no, that's good.
Based
because
on
we
the
could
white supremacy.
No, and we could agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And where I was coming from around the power piece is what brother was talking about around the 1/10 of the 1% of the 60% in terms of the resources. That's where I was coming from. I'm not coming from infinite possibility. I'm not coming from when 2 and 3 folks get together and start dialoguing around what we can do in terms of our empowerment. I'm not talking about histories of change and revolution, you know, when we're the masses. So that's where I was coming from. I was talking about the difference between structure, you know, in terms of who owns what, in terms of power, versus us being rendered powerless because we don't know who we are. That's where I'm coming from.
But my point is.
Oh,
that
please.
it
But
goes
there's
back-
room for agreeing
No,
to
I
disagree.
understand what you're saying, but
Yes.
I just want to say that,
Yes.
you know, if you look at our history, in my opinion, we're going backwards because before, as the brother said, so-called integration, we had hospitals. We had our own hospitals, not clinics, hospitals, right? We had our own insurance companies. We had our own banks. Yeah, we got a few of them here now that are still struggling. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about because of this mentality of the integration, you know, we're going backwards. We're losing our power. You know what I'm saying? But we do have it if we come together. We have it.
As we come together. My brother with the hat, and then Dr. Verne.